Okay, in this video, I'm going to show you how to create a basic interior room using 1-point linear perspective, also known as using a single vanishing point. So as I always start this kind of drawing, I'm going to go ahead and determine where the eye level is in my picture. If you do it higher, you'll have more floor space. If you do it lower, the horizon line lower, you're going to have more ceiling space. So when you're deciding where you want this to be, you can kind of think, well, do I want more floor space or do I want more ceiling space? Go ahead and make an X to show where the vanishing point is. Now this time we're going to start with the back wall of the room rather than a side wall or a different part of the room. I'm going to go ahead and determine where my back wall is, and my back wall I'm going to have determined by a rectangle. So in a way, it's pretty easy to draw a rectangle. I often freehand it just to get it where I want it, but right now I'm drawing with my triangle, lining it up to the side of the paper to get those lines vertical and horizontal. Now, depending on how you make this shape, your room will seem different. If you make a tall, skinny, kind of like an iPhone shape standing up, it will look like a hallway or a very small, skinny room. If you make a nice wide rectangle, it will look like a wide room, like a theater or an auditorium maybe. I'm trying to make it somewhere in between those two, just so it looks like kind of a normal shaped, like a living room or a classroom or whatever kind of thing. Okay, now I want you to pay close attention to these 2 points, the vanishing point and the corner of this back wall. An error that a lot of people make is that they line up their corner of the page, which actually has nothing to do with making these shapes correctly. So by chance, your lines may end up at the corner of the page, or at least one of them might, but that is not where you're lining your straight edge up between your vanishing point and the corner of the rectangle you just drew every time you do this. So as you can see now, I've kind of created a side wall here, and with this line over here, I'm going to make my ceiling and my part of another wall. So again, I'm lining it up between my vanishing point, and you'll notice that the line doesn't go right to the corner of the page almost ever. Now I have had people measure their rectangles so that they would end up at the corner of the page on purpose, just because they wanted that real symmetrical look, and that is fine. But to make this room look like it makes sense visually, you just want to line up your vanishing point with the corner of the room. Okay, now I'm going to lighten my horizon line because I don't need it much. Maybe I'll use it a little bit. I'm just taking out a lot of it. I still want to see a little bit maybe, so I left a tad of it there, but now I'm going to go ahead and do doors and windows like we've practiced before. So I think I'm going to do a door on one side and a window on another. Actually, I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to do the door on this side and the window on the other. And then we're going to draw a cube, just like we've practiced in previous lessons, that is going to be whatever you want it to be. It could be a dresser, a table, a bed, any sort of furniture that's based on a rectangle. So I'm making my doorway go above my eye level because we don't want a teeny little door. We want a normal size door that might be in a room. I'm doing, that was step number 1. Now I'm doing step number 2, where I head off to the vanishing point for the top of the door. And then I'm going to do step number 3, where I do a perfectly vertical line that that will finish off my door. Okay. Oopsie. Okay, good. Okay, so I have a basic door shape. Now these side panels should be pretty familiar to you if you've been following along with my lessons. They are just the same side panels like I call it the flat screen TV in the desert. The only thing is they're connected to that the rectangle in the back, so it looks like the inner part of a room. On this side, I'm going to go ahead and do a window. I did step number 1 here, the closest vertical. Step number 2, head off to my vanishing point. And step number 3 is to finish it off. And I guess you could say step number 4 is to erase the extra bits. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this part right here. Okay, good. So if you stand back and look at this, you should see the basic skeleton of a room. Now you could do a lot more to make this more room-like, add more windows, add more architectural details, 3D the windows and the doors. For this basic part of this lesson though, what I'm gonna do is I am going to create some sort of piece of furniture here under this window. And based on how you do it, you can, you're gonna end up either with a bed, a dresser, or what have you. I'm going to say I want to kind of do something like a dresser. So the first thing I do is step number 1. You guys might remember it from your previous lessons where we're drawing a cube. And you might think like, well, I need to like do this special thing, but really it's exactly the same activity that we've been doing. I made mine a little bit wider than I wanted. So here I'm going to go, I'm lining up my straight edge at the bottom so I can get this shape nice and straight. Now in reality, furniture has all sorts of kind of wild shapes. There's feet that you might draw under a dresser. There's all sorts of things, and those are all things you can still do while using these strategies. This is kind of getting your basic shape, and then, you know, often I'll end up erasing most of these lines while I'm doing my actual drawing. Okay, so far I have step number 1, and I am erasing this back wall to some extent so that it doesn't get in the way of my drawing, because it's really easy to get confused with a lot of lines there. Okay, step number 2 is this. Going off toward my vanishing point, keeping my straight edge on the vanishing point at all times, and just moving the direction of which line I'm heading to. And here's my third one. So I'm just heading off toward the vanishing point here. Okay, now an area that a lot of people mess up or make mistakes on is step number 3 when they're trying to make a cube. The crucial thing to do here is to line up your straight edge to the side of the paper so you get a perfectly horizontal line when you're doing the first part of this. So I'm going to go ahead and do a horizontal line right here. And I made sure it's perfectly horizontal. A lot of people have them at weird angles, and then things look wonky on the back end of their cubes. Okay, so there is the top of my dresser, and then I'm going to finish it off right here with a perfect vertical, a line that goes straight up and down. Okay, now you can see in advance I kind of erased most of what was behind there, but I used that guideline to decide where to start my front corner of my dresser. Okay, now I could of course go ahead and do all the kinds of details that would actually make this like a dresser. For example, putting drawers in. Drawers are great to make a dresser look like a dresser, aren't they? And I'm intentionally not lining it up with the corner of the room because I think that would be confusing. So I'm trying to make my drawers at different places than the corner of the room. Okay, I'm going to kind of divide them, some of them in half. That's always nice when you have a few drawers divided in half. I'm just eyeballing where halfway is right now. Okay, so there I have my dresser. I have a basic doorway. I have a basic window. Okay, that's the first part of this. If you want to elaborate and get fancier, you can do the second part.